When we think about hazardous waste, I feel like we usually picture those glowing green barrels from like comic book origin stories.
Right, yeah, or like massive industrial smokestacks billowing out on the edge of town or something.
Exactly. We naturally look, outside of our homes for that kind of danger.
Yeah, because we associate toxicity with massive scale. It's almost always framed as someone else's mess, right? Like it's manufactured in a chemical plant hundreds of miles away, totally detached from our daily routines.
But right now, you, the person listening to this, might actually be sitting just a few feet away from a hidden, highly toxic time capsule.
It's kind of wild to think about.
It really is. And it is not buried in an abandoned lot. It's physically bolted to the wall in your living room or sitting right there in your hallway, masquerading as a completely mundane, everyday piece of household equipment.
So true. And we're diving into this today based on a really eye-opening interview from an HVAC trade show. It's called Cool Talk.
Great show, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Really informative. And they featured a 45-year industry veteran named Dave Hartzell. He runs Hartzell's Heat and Air out in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. And through his boots on the ground experience, he is really sounding the alarm about a piece of legacy hardware that is, well, it's incredibly elegant in its design, deeply nostalgic to look at, but quietly creating a huge decentralized environmental crisis.
Okay, let's unpack this. We are talking about thermostats. Specifically, those classic, iconic round dials.
The ones everyone remembers from growing up.
Right. If you close your eyes and picture an old-school thermostat, you are almost certainly picturing the Honeywell T87, or maybe one of those older rectangular ones with the little sliding levers on the bottom.
Yeah, those Honeywell units were the absolute gold standard for decades. I mean, you would find them in almost every single home built before the year 2000.
And honestly, before we get into the massive environmental danger of these things, I want to talk about the sheer genius of how they actually operate.
Yeah.
Because, if you pop the plastic cover off one of these round dials, you don't find a computer chip.
No, not at all.
You find pure mechanical physics.
Exactly. You find something called a bimetallic coil, which basically acts as the engine for the entire device.
And that's just two metals stuck together, right?
Yeah, it's a tiny metal spiral made of two entirely different types of metal, usually something like brass and steel, and they've been permanently welded together. And because different metals expand and contract at completely different rates when they are exposed to heat or cold, this little coil physically curls up tighter when the ambient air gets cold. And then it slowly uncurls and expands when the room gets warm.
So it functions like a tiny mechanical muscle reacting directly to the air temperature.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
And attached to the end of that expanding muscle is a tiny glass vial. Inside that sealed vial is a single silver drop of liquid mercury, roughly the size of a button on a dress shirt.
Yep, just a little bead.
I like to think of the whole mechanism as a temperature-sensitive seesaw. Like, as the bimetallic coil curls or uncurls, it physically tilts the seesaw. That liquid silver marble rolls down to one end of the glass tube, bridges the gap between two little metal wires, completes an electrical circuit, and boom, your furnace kicks on.
What's fascinating here is why they designed it that way. The reason engineers relied on mercury for half a century to perform that exact function is because its properties are just entirely unique.
Because it's a metal, but it's liquid.
Exactly. It is a heavy metal that remains perfectly liquid at room temperature, which means it flows freely, but it also conducts electricity flawlessly. Think about a standard physical switch. Every time you flip a light switch, there is friction.
Right, metal scraping on metal.
Yeah, and over time, physical mechanisms wear down, copper contacts oxidize, or they rust. But a rolling bead of liquid mercury sealed inside a glass tube, it never degrades.
That's crazy.
It will conduct that electrical charge perfectly for 100 years. It requires no software updates. It doesn't need to connect to a router.
It literally cannot crash.
Right. It is the absolute pinnacle of analog engineering.
But that exact reliability is what brings us to the hidden danger. Because that silver marble doing all the heavy lifting on the seesaw is a highly toxic heavy metal.
Very toxic.
And while it is safely sealed inside that glass vial on your wall, it is completely harmless. You could leave it there for another century without an issue. The threat actually begins the precise second you decide to finally take it down.
Yeah, the transition from a useful, reliable tool to a severe environmental hazard happens the moment the device enters the residential waste stream.
So like a DIY project on a Sunday afternoon.
Exactly. Think about a typical weekend project. A homeowner buys a sleek new smart thermostat at the hardware store. They unscrew the old round dial from the hallway wall, wire up the new digital interface, and then they just toss the old plastic unit directly into the kitchen trash along with the cardboard packaging.
Which, I mean, feels entirely logical in the moment. It is just a piece of plastic and metal. We throw away old toasters, broken blenders, obsolete electronics all the time without a second thought.
We do, but the crucial difference lies in the violent journey that trash takes next. Your kitchen bag goes out to the curb, a sanitation truck picks it up and throws it into the back.
Oh, and those trucks crush everything.
Yeah, they utilize massive, high-pressure hydraulic compactors to crush the garbage and maximize their storage space. The brittle plastic casing of the thermostat shatters instantly, and that tiny, delicate glass vial holding the mercury, it is completely pulverized.
Oh, man.
By the time that truck drives across town and dumps its load at the municipal landfill, the mercury is fully exposed to the elements.
And what happens to it once it's sitting in a landfill? Does it just sit harmlessly in the dirt?
Unfortunately, no. That is where the chemistry becomes incredibly problematic. Exposed mercury can actually vaporize at normal, everyday room temperatures.
It turns into a gas, just sitting out in the open.
Yes. It turns into an invisible, odorless, highly toxic gas that can be easily inhaled by sanitation workers or anyone nearby. And if it doesn't vaporize into the air, it leaches downward through the layers of garbage and soil, eventually contaminating the local groundwater supply.
That is terrifying.
We are talking about a potent neurotoxin that can cause severe neurological and kidney damage. This is precisely why municipal landfills strictly prohibit these devices from entering their gates. They do not want them anywhere near their facilities.
Okay, let me push back on this, just playing devil's advocate for a second.
Right.
We are talking about a single drop of mercury the size of a shirt button.
Right.
I turn on the news and I see massive industrial chemical spills or, millions of gallons of crude oil leaking into the ocean. Is throwing one single button-sized drop into a giant landfill really that catastrophic in the grand scheme of global pollution?
It's a fair question, but if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to look at the math. Our brains inherently struggle to multiply small numbers by massive scales. Dave brought up data from an organization called the Thermostat Recycling Corporation, or the TRC.
Okay, the TRC.
Yeah, and their internal data estimates there are millions of these legacy units still actively functioning in American homes.
Millions.
Millions. So a single drop of mercury from your living room isn't going to cause a localized ecological collapse on its own. But millions of well-intentioned homeowners independently throwing these away across thousands of local landfills. That equates to hundreds of thousands of pounds of heavy metal neurotoxins quietly bleeding into the country's water table over time.
Wow.
It is like a catastrophic oil spill happening 1 teaspoon at a time, spread invisibly across 10,000 different ZIP codes.
A decentralized crisis, which requires a completely different kind of solution. You can't just slap a regulation on a single chemical plant to stop this leak, because the source of the leak is millions of separate suburban living rooms.
Which is exactly why the TRC does not send environmental agents knocking on front doors. They tackle this decentralized problem by utilizing the boots on the ground, the HVAC contractors themselves.
Like Dave.
Exactly. Professionals like Dave, who service towns in Oklahoma like Kingfisher, Okarche, Dover, and Cashin, they are out there every single day, running service calls, repairing furnaces, and installing air conditioners. The TRC program provides these heating and air companies with specialized, heavily protected collection bins to keep right in their work vans.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
These technicians essentially become bounty hunters for toxic waste.
That's a great way to put it.
If they are already in your house to fix your AC and they spot one of those old Honeywell T87s on the hallway wall, they proactively pull it out of circulation. But, I'm slightly skeptical about how this works in practice. Well, why would a busy contractor who is rushing between emergency calls in the middle of a brutal summer heat wave take the time to carefully log these old dials, store them in a bin, and navigate the logistics of shipping them off? What is actually in it for them to do this extra work?
Well, they tap directly into behavioral psychology and the natural competitive drive of trade professionals. The TRC runs a massive annual campaign called the Banish Mercury Off the Planet contest.
Okay, I love that name.
Right. They've been doing this for 15 years, and their major push happens from January through June, which is critical because as of today, June 15th, 2026, we are literally in the final 2-week sprint of this year's massive drive. The TRC completely gamifies the collection process.
Meaning they don't just ask nicely and hand out pamphlets about saving the environment.
Oh, definitely not. They offer tangible, high-value incentives. The contest motivates these contractors with escalating prize tiers based on the sheer volume of mercury thermostats they manage to collect.
Wait, so they just give out cash?
They hold drawings for serious cash, yeah. They give away expensive high-end trade tools, and they hand out brand new diagnostic equipment. They even publish state-level leaderboards.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Seeing a rival heating and air company from the next town over beating you on a leaderboard drives behavior far more effectively than a generic plea to recycle, you know?
Turning an administrative chore into a high-score chase. It is a brilliant strategy because traditional environmental regulation is almost always punitive. It relies heavily on the threat of fines and punishing bad behavior.
Flipping that script to a reward-based system aligns the incentives perfectly. The contractors are already inside the home doing the manual labor. By offering these competitive rewards, the TRC guarantees the technician will gladly take the extra 2 minutes to educate the homeowner, take the old unit off the wall, and secure it safely in the van.
And then what?
Well, the physical collection is only half the battle. The real engineering marvel is what happens after that full bin gets shipped back to the TRC.
Because Dave mentioned, this all feeds into a 100% closed-loop system. And in the world of manufacturing or recycling, a closed-loop system is basically the holy grail. It means absolutely nothing is wasted or left behind.
Exactly. The TRC doesn't just take these bins and bury the vials in a slightly safer, specialized landfill. They ship them to certified, highly regulated processing facilities where the thermostat is completely deconstructed. The mercury is carefully extracted from the intact glass vials and run through a complex purification process.
Oh, so they clean it up.
Yes. And once it is restored to its pure state, it is actually sold back into the market for reuse in highly controlled industrial applications.
So it goes into things that genuinely still require mercury to function rather than, mining new mercury from the earth.
Exactly. It is repurposed safely for specialized industrial lighting and heavy-duty manufacturing equipment. And they don't stop with just the liquid metal.
Right. What about all the plastic and the metal coils?
The old plastic dials, the metal backplates, the brass and steel bimetallic coils, all of those individual components are stripped down and funneled into their own separate recycling streams. A piece of hazardous waste sitting in a residential hallway is completely neutralized and turned back into raw industrial resources.
That is just incredible. But the TRC can only recycle what they can actually find. If a homeowner decides to swap their thermostat over the weekend and just tosses the old one in the trash without calling a pro, that entire closed-loop system falls apart immediately.
Yeah, it breaks the chain.
The burden ultimately falls on you, the listener. So let's break down exactly what you should do today. First, identification. If your home was built before the year 2000, take a walk down your hallway. Look for that classic round dial or one of the older rectangular models.
Yeah, and if you aren't completely sure if your specific model has a mercury switch hidden inside it, the industry advice is incredibly straightforward. Either look up the exact model number online or just assume it does.
Better safe than sorry.
Treat it as if it contains hazardous material until proven otherwise.
The golden rule of this entire deep dive: do not throw it in the trash. If you are doing a DIY upgrade and taking it off the wall yourself, you have to dispose of the old unit responsibly. Many cities have municipal household hazardous waste drop-off locations, which is a great option.
Alternatively, you can lean on the professionals. Dave mentioned on the show that many contractors are so deeply invested in this TRC program that they will actually come pick these up from your house for free or waive their standard fees if it means getting a mercury dial off your wall and into their collection bin.
Dave actually does that, right, for folks in central Oklahoma?
He does. He mentioned they can just call his office at 405-375-4822 or visit hartzellssheetair.com. The HVAC industry is literally willing to eat the cost to get these devices out of circulation.
So what does this all mean for someone who might be listening right now and thinking, my old round dial works just fine, I don't care about smart home gadgets, and I'll just leave it on the wall forever so it never goes to a landfill?
I'm sure a lot of people think that.
Aside from keeping heavy metals out of the local water supply, what is the immediate selfish financial reason for you to upgrade this little dial today?
It comes down to a mechanical concept called the swing. We talked earlier about the bimetallic coil, that mechanical muscle expanding and contracting to physically tilt the seesaw. It is a stunning piece of analog engineering, but by its very nature, it is not precise.
Right, it's just reacting to the air hitting it.
Exactly. Those old legacy thermostats generally have a 2-degree swing built into their operation.
Meaning if I twist the dial and set it to 72 degrees, it doesn't actually hold the room at a steady, consistent 72.
It physically can't. It relies on the ambient air in the hallway to heat up the metal coil enough to make it move. So the room might actually have to reach 74 degrees before the seesaw finally tilts far enough to turn your air conditioning on.
Ah, okay.
And once the AC is blasting, it might overcool the room all the way down to 70 degrees before the coil shrinks enough to tilt the seesaw back the other way and shut the system off. You end up living with these massive constant temperature fluctuations.
Which is why you wake up sweating in the middle of the night, you throw all the blankets off, and then an hour later, you're freezing and pulling them back on.
Exactly. Beyond the sheer physical discomfort, think about what that analog guesswork does to your actual HVAC machinery. Your air conditioner compressor and your furnace are being forced to cycle on and off far more frequently.
Oh, that makes sense.
Or they were running much longer than necessary just trying to chase this constantly moving target. That mechanical swing is incredibly taxing on the equipment. It accelerates the wear and tear on your blower motor, and it guarantees higher utility bills every single month, whether it's the dead of winter or the peak of summer.
Upgrading to a modern, programmable, or smart thermostat like, a Nest or an Ecobee, completely eliminates that analog inefficiency. They use highly calibrated digital sensors that are accurate to a fraction of a degree. Your system turns on exactly when it needs to and shuts off exactly when it should.
The return on investment is undeniable. Basic programmable units are relatively inexpensive to purchase and install, and even the higher-end smart units quickly pay for themselves through sheer energy savings.
Not to mention saving the AC unit itself.
Yes, you actively extend the lifespan of a central air system that costs thousands of dollars to replace simply by giving it accurate marching orders. And if your older home requires a minor wiring update, like a dedicated C-wire for continuous power, a professional can handle that transition quickly and safely.
And Dave actually mentioned something about that, right? A diagnostic fee credit.
Yeah, Dave charges a $111 diagnostic fee if there's a wiring issue, but that fee is entirely credited toward the repair if you have them complete it within 14 days.
Plus, you get all the modern quality of life perks. You can control the temperature from your phone while you're lying in bed. You can track your energy usage over time to see exactly where your money is going.
The system can even learn your daily schedule so it isn't aggressively cooling an empty house while you are away at work.
You upgrade your daily comfort, you slash your monthly energy bills, you protect your expensive HVAC hardware from premature failure, and you effortlessly remove a toxic hazard from your living space by letting a professional handle the recycling. It is a win across the board.
It really is.
To recap our journey today, we started by looking at the pure physics of the bimetallic coil and the liquid mercury seesaw, the incredibly elegant analog engine that ruled our homes for half a century.
Yeah.
We explored the massive, hidden environmental threat that materializes the moment those fragile glass vials end up in a landfill compactor. We uncovered the TRC's brilliant use of behavioral psychology, gamifying a closed-loop recycling effort by turning local HVAC technicians into a highly motivated army of collection agents.
The bounty hunters?
Exactly. And we broke down the real-world financial imperative of ditching that inaccurate mechanical swing for modern digital precision.
The transition away from the legacy T87 dial is a perfect example of necessary progress. But looking at the life cycle of this device raises an important, lingering question.
Love it.
Something to ponder as you look around your house today. The mercury thermostat was once considered the absolute pinnacle of safe, reliable, everyday engineering. It was the gold standard, and nobody thought twice about bolting it to their hallway wall.
Right.
Looking at the devices we surround ourselves with right now, what perfect, highly efficient technologies are we relying on today that might silently become the hidden hazardous waste challenges for the next generation to solve?
The revolutionary gadgets we take for granted today might just be the toxic bounties of tomorrow. That is a fascinating thought to sit with. So as soon as this deep dive wraps up, take a quick walk down your hallway, check your wall. You might just have a tiny toxic time capsule waiting to be safely retired. Thank you so much for joining us as we unpack this intersection of legacy engineering and environmental action. Keep asking questions, keep checking your blind spots, and above all, stay curious. We'll catch you on the next Deep Dive.